Hi everyone, my name is Drew Wilfert. I'm the designer of Immune Horizon, and today I'll be teaching you the basic rules and concepts of the game. Immune Horizon gets players to work together as part of one of two teams, pathogens or immune cells, and lets them participate in the microscopic war for infection. At the start of the game, each player will be randomly given, or they may choose, a player board for a particular pathogen or immune cell. Each board has special abilities only available to each pathogen or immune cell. A complete list of abilities is available in the appendix of the rulebook. A game of Immune Horizon consists of 10 rounds, called days. A day consists of one complete turn for each team. So, each team gets 10 turns throughout the game. The pathogens start each day by going first. The day of infection is tracked on the infection tracker board, which is shown here. Note the indicator showing that it is currently day 3 in our example game. The infection tracker board is split into two differently colored sets of days, which represent two phases in the game. The first 6 days are white, indicating innate immunity, while the final 4 blue shaded days, days 7 through 10, indicate adaptive immunity. In real life, immune cells need time to ramp up their ability to fight off infection. So in the game, some adaptive immune cells, like the B cells and the killers, gain extra, more powerful abilities once the game enters adaptive immunity. These abilities are often more expensive, but yield powerful results for the immune system players. Adaptive-only events are only playable after day 7 and the start of adaptive immunity begins. The primary objective of the game is slightly different for each team. The pathogens are trying to be present in more than half of the pink tissue spaces on the board at the end of the game, while the immune cells want to prevent the pathogens from being present in more than half of the pink spaces. Presence, or being present, is defined by having any pathogen token, which is marked by one of these wooden chevrons, in any space. In this example, there are 16 pink tissue spaces across 2 board segments. To win, the pathogens need to be present in 9 or more pink spaces, shown here. In order for the immune cells to win, they need to keep the pathogens in 8 or fewer spaces, which is shown here. Immune cell presence, as marked by the small wooden circles, does not factor into any victory conditions. The only thing that matters for winning is pathogen presence across the tissue. Once players have selected player boards, either randomly or otherwise, it's time to set up the board and get the game started. The board size depends upon the number of players in your game. A 2-player game will use 1 tissue board segment, while a 3 to 4 player game will use 2 board segments, and a 5 to 6 player game will use 3 board segments. Boards can be arranged in any order in which they fit together, and both teams must agree to the orientation chosen. For this example, we're showing you a 4-player game, and so we'll be using 2 board segments oriented like this. Once the board is assembled, players place their available cell or pathogen tokens on the circular or chevron-shaped spaces in their nutrient uptake track section of their player board. They are then ready to place their first pieces and begin the game. First, each pathogen player places 2 of their pathogen tokens onto pink spaces on any one board segment. These pieces are taken from the top left of their nutrient uptake track and should reveal the smallest number, usually the number 1, for the major nutrient uptake action. We'll talk more about the major nutrient uptake action in a couple of minutes. The pathogen tokens can be placed in the same space, like this, or in 2 different spaces, like this. Once the pathogens are finished, the immune cells will place 1 immune cell wooden circle token in any lymph node. Lymph nodes are indicated by the blue spaces on the board. Lymph nodes are safe havens for the immune cells throughout the game. Pathogens may not enter lymph nodes, and they do not count for the final space count at the end of the game. Each day, both teams take a single turn. The pathogens always take their turn first. Teams choose to take their turn in whatever order they wish. So, all players on a team may take their turn together in unison, or they may have one player take their turn first, and then have the next player on the team take their actions to maximize an effect or ability. This order can change from turn to turn, allowing for flexibility for each team in their turn order. A team's turn is split into 5 main parts. The first is daily nutrient, second, basic actions, third, metabolism, fourth, complex actions, and finally, fifth, mutation and alarm-in cards. You'll notice that the first 4 parts of a turn, daily nutrient, basic actions, metabolism, and complex actions, are all a main section of each player board. If you ever forget parts of the turn, you can also look at the player aid, which provides you information about the actions you can take on your turn, and the player aid also defines some common symbols used on each player board. Each action on a given player board has a distance label underneath it. Actions with a distance of 0 occur on a territory with that requirement. For example, the basic action replication says it produces a B cell in a space with a B cell already present, but they may not add B cells in spaces that do not have a B cell already. Some actions can be played some distance away from the requirement. For instance, the antibody action for the B cells has a distance of 2. So, a player may place an antibody token in any space up to 2 spaces away from any B cell token. To calculate distance, count how many border lines you must cross to get to a given space from the space that meets the requirement. In this example, I'm crossing 1, 2 spaces to place this antibody 2 spaces away from the space with the B cell. Next, we're going to talk about nutrients. Nutrients are a resource that helps immune cells and pathogens pay for complex actions. Players acquire nutrients in 2 different ways. First, by drawing a nutrient card as part of their daily nutrient action, and second, by drawing additional nutrient cards with the major nutrient uptake action. In this game, there are 4 main nutrient types: lipids, carbohydrates, proteins, and nucleic acids, which are shown here. At the start of each player's turn, they'll take a daily nutrient action. With this action, each player may select 1 face-up nutrient card from the nutrient board. Once they've selected their card, they take the nutrients indicated on that card and place them in their nutrient supply, which is on the right side of their player board. They will then discard the card and proceed to the basic action phase of their turn. After players have finished taking their daily nutrients, the empty spaces on the nutrient board are not replaced until the end of the team's turn. Future nutrient draws for the rest of the team's turn can happen from the remaining face-up cards, if there are any, or be blind draws from the nutrient deck. Once a player has taken a daily nutrient, they may then select 1 basic action to perform. Each player board has slightly different basic actions, but here we will show you the basic actions available to the killers as an example. Each day, each player may choose just 1 of these basic actions to perform. First, the killers can play replication, which has a distance of 0, and allows the player to produce another cell in a space they are already present. The second basic action they have is migration, which allows them to move 1 cell up to 2 spaces, or 2 cells up to 1 space each. Finally, they have the major nutrient uptake action. When a player takes this action, they draw a number of nutrient cards depending on the number of cell or pathogen tokens they've placed on the board. As a player places more cells and pathogens on the board, they reveal larger numbers on their nutrient uptake track. When a player takes the major nutrient uptake action, they draw nutrient cards equal to the highest number revealed on the nutrient uptake track. So, in this example with the killers, when the player selects the major nutrient uptake action, they will draw 3 cards from the nutrient deck, since the 3 is revealed on their nutrient uptake track. Once they draw 3 cards, they can keep the nutrients listed on 2 of them. You may never keep nutrients from more than 2 cards with any 1 major nutrient uptake action. So, you can see that getting pieces down on the board not only helps a player get presence on the board, but also accelerates their major nutrient uptake. It is important to note that if a player's pieces are removed from the board, they are returned to that player's nutrient uptake track, and this may reduce the number of cards that a player can draw in a single major nutrient uptake action. In the example here, the purple Killers player plays their complex action cytokine production. This action removes one of the red player's pathogen tokens from the board. This token is then returned to the red player's player board, covering up a space on their nutrient uptake track. The red player now may only take 2 nutrient cards with their major nutrient uptake action instead of 3, since the pathogen token that we placed in that spot covered up the number 3. Once players have acquired nutrients from their daily nutrient and major nutrient uptake actions, they will likely want to convert some nutrients into something more useful to them. To the right of the basic action section on each player board is a section labeled Metabolism. Each player board has a cell or pathogen-specific metabolism action, which can be used once per day. For the killers, they can convert any 2 nutrients into 2 black carbohydrate tokens as part of their glycogen storage cell-specific action. Each player board also has a slow metabolism action, which is the same for all players and allows any player to convert any 3 nutrients into any one other nutrient. There's no limit to the number of times this action may be taken each turn, provided the player has the appropriate number of resources to convert. Of note, when the any nutrient symbol, shown here, is used, players may use any nutrient, and they do not have to be of the same type. For example, this player could trade 2 blue nucleic acids and 1 yellow lipid token for a red protein token. Finally, once players have taken their daily nutrient, conducted a basic action, and any metabolism, they may take their complex actions. Complex actions do not have a limit for each day, but each action comes with a nutrient cost, which is indicated by the colored squares below each action's name. These squares correspond to the 4 nutrients: blue nucleic acids, black carbohydrates, yellow lipids, and red proteins. For example, cytokine production on the killer's player board costs 1 blue nucleic acid and 1 black carbohydrate. If a player pays this cost, they may take the action listed to the right. So, if the player pays the cost for cytokine production, they will produce 1 alarmin, which we will talk about in a moment, and then remove 1 pathogen or infected cell token from any space where there is a killer cell. As before, the pathogen token that player removes will go back on that player's nutrient uptake track. For more detailed information about each player board's abilities, please look in the appendix of the rulebook, which contains important information about each action, as well as real-life background on each of the cell types. As we just saw a moment ago, some immune cell actions produce alarmins, while some pathogen actions produce mutations. Mutations and alarmins recruit immune cells and pathogens and offer unique abilities to each team. When actions generate alarmins or mutations, they are added to the mutation or alarmin pool, which are tracked on the infection tracker board on a 20-sided die. For this example, with our cytokine production complex action we just took with the killers, we add 1 alarmin to the alarmin pool. To do this, we switch the die from 4 to 5 alarmins in the pool. At the end of a team's turn, they will check to see how many mutations or alarmins are present in their pool. If that number is 5 or greater, a mutation or alarmin event is triggered. Players will subtract 5 mutations or alarmins from the respective pool, and then a mutation or alarmin card will be drawn, and its effect will be read and performed. If at the end of a turn the number is 10 or greater, then 2 cards will be drawn, and 10 mutations or alarmins will be subtracted from the mutation or alarmin pool. Essentially 5 mutations or alarmins per card. This continues for as many mutation or alarmins as are present in the pool at the end of a team's turn. Once players have resolved mutation and alarmin cards, they will check to make sure they do not have too many nutrients. The maximum any one player can hold at the end of their turn is 8. If they have more than 8 nutrients in their nutrient supply, they must discard any nutrients down to a maximum of 8. At this point, once players have completed all actions, resolved any mutation or alarmin events, and checked their nutrient supply to ensure that they are not over the limit, their turn ends. Refresh any empty spaces in the nutrient board with face-up nutrient cards. If the pathogens complete their turn, then the immune cells get to take their turn. If the immune cells finish their turn, the day of infection marker advances 1 space, and then the pathogens take their turn. Once the immune cells finish their turn at the end of day 10, the game is over. To check for final scoring, do the following in order. First, count the number of pink spaces on the board. This is usually 8 spaces per board segment. Second, count the number of pink spaces with a pathogen present in it. Spaces with pathogens present are those with colored chevrons in them. Importantly, infected cells, which are the pink circles, can be produced by viruses and intracellular bacteria, but do not count on their own as a space with a pathogen unless there is also a pathogen chevron in that space. Remember, immune cell presence does not affect game end scoring. And finally, if the pathogens are present in more than half of the spaces, for this example, at least 9 of the 16 spaces on the board, then the host succumbs to infection and the pathogens win. Otherwise, the immune system has fought off the infection and they win the game. With that, we've covered the basic rules for Immune Horizon. For specifics on cell and pathogen-specific actions, remember to check out the player boards or look at the appendix at the end of the rulebook for more information. If you have any further questions or concerns, please email us at immunehorizon@gmail.com.